When he wanders up into my office, and I'll say wanders, and he kind of comes around the corner just to check to see if I'm in there. He always starts a conversation by asking me how I'm doing, how my family's doing, and that definitely has made an impact on me.
He's really good at getting the best and trying to get something out of you that you didn't know you had, and so for him to really just set that bar and give me that goal and kind of that expectation. I just kind of wanted to, prove him wrong when I knew he knew I probably could score more.
As his kid, people will ask, like, that's a lot, like he's gone a lot. Like, well, yeah, I mean, he travels, but he's never absent. He's one of the most present and intentional people you'll ever meet.
So you're officially retired?
June 30th is my last day to get a paycheck. And then, where did I go from here? I have some pro athletes, so I'll work with them a little bit. I'm going to volunteer to do whatever I can to make the transition with Coach Johnson as smooth as possible. And there's some athletes here that still look to get advice sometimes. I'll do that whenever I'm needed.
Can you believe it? Is it sunk in?
It's hitting. I'm not moving away. I have good health. The timing, I think, was very deliberate 2 years ago when Hunter and I talked about the transition for Coach Johnson to take over.
Was that important to you?
Yes, because for track coaches, that doesn't happen very often, where you actually get to be part of the decision. Obviously it's Hunter's decision, but when we chatted, Coach Johnson was the hot guy. And not to say he's still not hot, but every university that had an opening was after him. And so I mentioned to Hunter, we could sit down and talk about time. And came up with the idea. We announced him as coach in waiting. And then, we had to pick a date. And he bounced it off the chancellor. And he said, I could probably go with 2 years. So then all of a sudden it was June 30th, 2023. And before you know it, it's here. So it's gone beyond my wildest imagination that this could even be possible. Because most track coaches walk out with, give me your keys, here's your box, put your goods in it, and head on out. They've been much more gracious than that.
Were you considering this retirement at about the same time Coach Johnson was becoming a sought-after coach in college track programs?
To some degree, yes. I'm 73 years old. I've done this now for 51 years. I've had my time. I was very fortunate to only be 29 years old and be a head coach at a university. So, there's optimal times to move on. I shared the story that when I first arrived, people looked at me as kind of a big brother. And then it became a fatherly figure. Dominique Scott always said, you're my dad in the United States. And then Nikki Hiltz, who's quite a character to say the least, was in an interview and said, I looked to him as kind of a grandfather. And that's when it was time to, move on.
You're not retired yet. You're still getting calls in the middle of an interview.
Yes, there's always another call.
That's good.
It's just one of those things that, the phone never stops ringing. Now I think the frequency is more of people calling and going, hey, I want to wish you farewell, or nice thoughts, or, maybe the impact that I've had on their lives from one way or another. A lot of coaches have been very, very gracious, and a lot of the ex-athletes have been really nice, and that sincerity means a lot.
Well, you've earned that. I mean, you have had a career of great success, but from my view, even better person. So, I think that is what you're basking in the glow of right now.
Yeah, I'm sucking it all in, believe me, and taking a lot of mental notes, because in a matter of weeks, no one's gonna, be interviewing you or asking you for comments or whatever. I'm very flattered, to say the least, and I've always wanted to do things the right way, and I think when we won our first national title, somebody, and it was repetitive, came up and said, "Congratulations, it's nice to see people do it the right way." And I never quite knew or understood at the time what that meant. I wasn't breaking rules or doing anything, but I think it was more of the treatment of others, and that's the way I was raised. My parents always felt you needed to be as kind and cordial to others as you would want them to treat you, and that's gone a long, long ways.
When you set that 2-year mark and you named Coach Johnson the coach in waiting, and you said a minute ago, and then boom, all of a sudden here we are, June 23. Were you ready? Is it kind of like, oh man?
No, it's kind of like, oh man. It's scary because I've never done it before. It's a timeline that changes things. It hit me the first time when some friends of ours said, "Hey, it'd be really great to have you join us in Europe and do this bike tour." And I said, "Well, when is it?" And they said September. And I go, "I can't do September." And my wife quickly corrected and said, "No, you can. There's a cross-country season. It'll go without you." Yeah. So we're making plans to do things that are in non-season.
That's awesome. It's got to be unsettling for someone who's been in a routine basically for 51 years in a career, but really your whole life, you've had this.
No doubt about it.
Get the next thing done, achieve the next thing,
Yes. It's an endless pursuit. It's a cross-country season that quickly evolves into an indoor season, which quickly springboards into an outdoor season. And then if you have athletes that are successful, they're going to be going on to the USA Championships or a summer tour, possibly a world championship or Olympic Games. And I was very blessed to be part of those, representing the U.S. Those are memories that, I'll cherish for the rest of my life, obviously. But yeah, all of a sudden you get locked into this. It's almost like Groundhog Day. It just keeps circling. And it is accelerated every year. It seems like the time goes by faster and faster.
How did you manage the grind? And you summed it up there. And Haley Ordway, who's a producer at Hogs Plus, did an amazing job, telling your story.
Very much.
Why not you?
Yes.
And the name on the track and all that. And I encourage anybody to go watch that at hogsplus.com. But I mean, you look great, and you've had a grind for 30 plus years at Arkansas, 51 overall in a track career of 3 seasons a year. So every sport is year round because you're recruiting. But you're doing 3 sports basically.
3 championships.
3 championships.
Yep.
and recruiting, and then when you're not actually doing that, you've got all the other events going on you just mentioned. How have you managed the grind? Like to just to be healthy, to look good, to treat others well. How have you done that?
Looking back, some people have said you have no idea how much stress you're on because you've adapted to it over such a lengthy period of time. The one thing that I think has saved me more than anything is surrounding myself with great coaches. I've been blessed to have fantastic assistant coaches. I I have a director of operations in Megan Elliott. This just does a fantastic job. And lo and behold, time has flown by. She's been with me for 15 years. So all of a sudden, you're kind of taking things for granted that how we make this ship move forward. But the one thing that I think is most important is I look forward to going to work every day. And when I get up, I'm like, okay, I got to take care of myself, stay healthy, go run, do whatever else to try to stay fit. But also looking forward to the interaction with the athletes each and every day.
How much do you run now?
It's I run 20 to 30 minutes, and somebody, I think the coach at Colorado said, so how far do you run? And I said, well, it's relative because those 20 to 30 minutes, the distance is getting shorter and shorter. He says, well, he does 45 minutes, and he goes, there was a time when I was running, 6 miles and no problem at all. Now I'm happy to get 2.5.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all relative. It's at least you're out there and functioning. I have a young chocolate lab that is a big guy. He's 84 pounds and just solid muscle. If you don't take him out, he will make sure he reminds you what time it is and he's ready to go. And so
that's your accountability partner.
Exactly. I don't have a training partner except for a chocolate lab named Murphy.
Yeah. I think back to early on in your career, you're winning a lot of SEC championships. John McDonald's winning all these national championships. You've won 13 national championships at Division II at Cal Poly. But you come into this program and you're hoping to turn it around, like make the women's program what the men's program could be.
Yep.
But it took so long to get that. You've won 7 national championships, but it took so long to get that first one. 15 years, right?
Yep.
What was that like?
It was interesting because Coach Mack was always a compliment to me and the program, and was, maybe one of our greatest cheerleaders. There's many more scholarships on the women's side than men. So the idea of his model worked so well with men, he didn't quite understand that the saturation of the number of scholarships for women just kind of diluted everything. And so to build a superpower like he created was unique to the men's side. We were always getting trophies, but unfortunately they weren't gold. A lot of silver and bronze and so on. So we were making the podium and being complimentary to the men's program, but that gold trophy was elusive. And then, one time in cross country, it came down to a 3-point margin where ourselves and Villanova, we were pronounced the victor at the site. We went to the awards ceremony and they said, well, sorry, there's been an error and you're second. And that was very deflating at the time. And at the same time, the men won. So we were celebrating this dual victory of the men's and women's teams. And then
and that would have been your first.
Our first.
What year was that? You remember?
I don't. I know it was in Pennsylvania.
Okay, but you got that. They false started your first national championship.
Exactly. And
that's heartbreaking.
It was truly heartbreaking.
That had to be
for
crushing.
Those kids and the staff to walk away going, oh man. And what happened was there was a finisher that was lost in the chute. They had to go back through the video and find that Villanova had been shortchanged one of the positions. And it was a great team. I mean, and Villanova's team was exceptional to say the least. But I think we were gracious in defeat and that much more driven that, this can happen. But every 4 to 5 years, the personnel change over. And then, we finally had the right personnel, and the first cross-country championship was with a great group of young ladies that a lot of people ask me what was unique about that team is they just would not let each other down. They were so devoted to each other that during the course of the race, I could actually check on them and let them know, hey, our front two are running great. You guys are in perfect position. Hold your position. Number 5, which is always the weak link of a team battle. We actually had number 5 and number 6 reinforcing each other, running side by side. And we finally got that victory, and it was by the slimmest of margins, only 6 points. And, we were able to serenade that elusive cross-country title. We had won some indoor and outdoor, but that same year, we went ahead and won indoor and outdoor as well. And that was the Triple Crown. And I think that might be the greatest single event of reward that I can serenade to myself was winning a Triple Crown, because Coach Mack made it look easy, and he did it 5 times. And so it was great that we were able to add one of those to the list for Arkansas.
Track team did such a fantastic job to pull off the upset indoors. Wait till the mile relay outdoors to pull off the upset. And so, this was like, okay, we got 2 of the steps. Now, can we take the 3rd? This is the crowning achievement. 2019 will always be prominent in my household.
Your career has been really decorated, going all the way back to Division II at Cal Poly, where I think you won Coach of the Year 10 times, and you 13 national championships, 8 in a row. You get here. Here's how you finished: 7 national championships, 45 SEC championships, 32 NCAA event titles, 9-time Coach of the Year, 45-time SEC Coach of the Year. You have the track named after you. What was that? Has that sunk in? like it's been a few months now.
Yeah.
You still kind of like, my name's on that track, the indoor track.
It was so far beyond any expectation. People had talked about the idea that the phenomenal statue of Coach Mack. Well, eventually they're going to build a statue of you. Well, if they do that in correlation to championships, you can get a bowling trophy size and place it out there. And I think the administration looked at it and go, that looked kind of dumb. And I don't know where they came up with that idea. I would have certainly never thought of it. But what was really special, John Tyson wrote me a handwritten letter that he and his family actually met about the idea, because obviously the Tyson Center is world renowned, that they would like to have my name added to it. And that just meant so much that, they got a lot of other things to think about besides some guy that coaches women's track and field, to think about the idea of putting my name on it. And then to take it to another level, Megan Elliott Outdoors had shirts made with Arkansas Track and Field in the front, but that same look of my signature on the back, and then in smaller print says his last lap. And so she had stickers and T-shirts made up. So my 95-year-old mom has a Arkansas Razorback T-shirt with my last lap on the back. Incredibly thoughtful. A lot of people think about the idea of a watch or something as, as a finale. I've been truly blessed. This is beyond my wildest dreams.
Coach has had a fantastic career. He's even a better person, and I think you can see that in how he pours into his athletes, and we've been nothing but fortunate to have him.
We went through your accomplishments. Let's go back to the beginning. Was there a moment where you said, oh, man, I'm in trouble. I made a mistake. I had it rolling at this D2 school. I've already turned down USC. You turned down UCLA. You had a chance to go to Tennessee.
Yep.
And you said no to all of them.
Yep.
And then Arkansas got you somehow, and then you're here, and you're like, were you ever like, oh man?
You know, it's funny. So I load up 2 little girls, my wife and I, in a van, drive across the country. In fact, we had a cat that we hated that had left us for a month. But when they closed the doors of the moving truck, the cat showed up. And my daughters are going, oh my gosh, we got to bring the cat. So we're driving across the country with a cat and 2 little girls. And got here, Bev Lewis, my boss and the previous track coach, pulls up right behind the truck and I as we arrive. And she says, do you have a coat and tie? And I'm like, why do I need a coat and tie? But it's in that truck. She goes, well, you need to have one tomorrow because you need to be at an announcement at 10 o'clock at the law school. And I'm like, what's going on? And she said, well, we're moving from the SWC to the SEC. And I'm like, that's not a good idea. And I started thinking then, man, we're jumping right into the deep well. And because when I sized up the job and John and I talked about the various programs and the SWC, a great conference in its own right, but with my strengths, I thought, we could have success pretty quick. But the championships, the national championships, were being won by the SEC schools. So all of a sudden now the standard just elevated dramatically. And I'm like, wow, what was I doing? And then once we got things rolling and the recruits started coming and so on, it was just more of a confirmation. This is our place. And my 2 daughters, for longest time, kept insisting that they were Californians and were not Arkansans. And I don't know why that image was, not relevant to them. But now they're dyed-in-the-wool Arkansans and obviously proved to be very successful and love Arkansas. The hardest part was my peers kept telling everyone, especially recruits, that I was leaving. This was a short stop. He went from Division II, won all those championships. Now he's at Division I. His recruiting base and everything is in California. So it's just a matter of time, and he's going to be the first opportunity available that he's going to head back to California. And I kept getting more and more irritated with my peers because the recruits were, I was going after the heavies. And so eventually it became almost a game. I would say, the next coach that tells you I'm leaving, ask them where I'm going, because I want to be able to tell my wife and kids where we're headed to. and made kind of a joke out of it. Yeah. And they would giggle and laugh, and then sometimes they would actually reveal, hey, the coach at such and such is saying that, you're out of here. Why would I go to Arkansas? And then once the successes started building, and then, it's amazing how that died down. And, coaches are always looking for an angle to try to neutralize someone else's strength. And I think that catches up with a lot of them eventually, because instead of just talking about what you can do, they're talking about what somebody else can't do. And when it proves that, this other school at Arkansas is just winning and doing it the right way, I think that's when a lot of my peers are no longer in the business. They ended up figuring out that they didn't belong.
Man. A couple things. First up, how was it when you weren't having the kind of success that you wanted to have while the men's team's making it look easy, winning all those national championships?
Yep. No, and John was, I came in when John was at the pinnacle of his career. It was just almost automatic, and it was amazing. The faces changed, but the results never changed. It was just championship after championship. And again, we met every day for lunch, and we would run together every day. And so for me, it was almost like a clinic to be a part of and bounce, hey, what does this work here, or should I try this, and so on and so forth. As our success elevated, he would watch me interacting with the girls, and there were times when there would be tears and so on and so forth, and he'd walk over and go, man, I don't know how you do it, and they don't pay you enough. So he was always really complimentary about it. But when I did clinics, and I did a lot of clinics nationally, I would say you're surprised as tan as I am because I'm always in the shadow of John McDonald.
Yeah.
And John would giggle about it, but the idea was it was true. I mean, you know, we would win. I think there was a time when we were at South Carolina for outdoor track. We won the conference, and he got beat. And he would always say, if we did get beat, you know, hey, I'll talk to the AD for you and make sure that you're okay. And so for the first time, I got to go to him with Coach Booth and say, now, you know, I'll be there on Monday morning and talk to Frank, put a good word in for you guys. And so it was always in jest, but, you know, we just motivated each other. And, you know, he's going, hey, the girls, they need to step up, you know, we're going to win it. Or he would say, we'll be very competitive. But you knew that they were going to dominate. And, you know, his guys would cheer on the girls. And that still holds true today.
That's so cool to hear about your relationship with him. When you think back on it now, how much did that impact your career?
Oh, tremendously. John hated speaking, you know, and he got invited all the time to do these clinics nationally. Usually the night before, and that's when the airlines were much more casual, he would say, here's my ticket, and here's my speech. Will you go to Philadelphia and speak on my behalf? Or Irvine, California, or whatever. And I would show up and just looking at the room going, boy, I know you're disappointed because John couldn't make it.
Yeah.
But I do have his notes, and I'll be glad to share with whatever I have and relate. And it almost became kind of a standing joke that, yeah,
that's so funny.
John's listed, but Lance is going to be there.
That's so funny.
And John was always, you know, very appreciative that I would, you know, fill in.
Who does that?
Yeah, well, he was, you know, John was a, phenomenal coach and obviously is an icon, but he was a phenomenal rancher, unbelievably successful and loved ranching. He loved putting on his cowboy boots and getting out there and working with the cattle and so on. And he had obviously some hired hands, but no, John, you know, he did a great job. He was fun. And I had a little bit of a background so we could talk and relate with, you know, sharing experiences and stuff.
The second thing I was going to touch on just about your career is, and I know your answer will be, well, it's all the great athletes and all the great coaches I've coached with, but what do you think made you successful? Besides those obvious things, what's everybody talks about, you know, secret recipe, secret sauce, whatever. Yeah. You know, John McDonald had a formula.
Yep.
I mean, he could get the guy that was going to finish 8th to finish maybe 5th, right?
Yep.
And that would, and that mattered, you know. And
no doubt about it.
What happened for you? Like, what did you kind of settle into that you would say, like, if you were giving insights onto why you were successful for the amount of time that you were, what was it?
I really think, you know, I've had a lot of time to kind of reflect on that. I think one of the things that I would share with young coaches is don't have such an ego that you're not willing to hire quality people to surround you by that complement your weaknesses. So my ego was never big enough not to share the stage with my coaches. A lot of people criticized our model because we basically operated as 3 separate head coaches. My office is the first one on the right, and that's where everybody would stop if there was a problem. But Chris Johnson and prior to him, Lonnie Green, et cetera, Brian Compton, who's been with me for over 20 years, we worked together cohesively that neither one of our egos ever interfered with what was the ultimate package of the overall program. And I think I was the one that kind of created that, is that, hey, if you're going to come and work, then you got to be able to share just as much as I'm going to share. And so many coaches are dictatorial. Ours is much more of a democracy. And I think it's worked. I think the results speak for themselves. And also the idea that if I'm going to fade out, that there's already coaches ready to take that position. So the transition, Hunter said, well, to make this all happen, make sure that Chris is ready to go on July 1. And I said, well, he's been ready to go since he got here, because we've operated that way since we arrived.
What have you enjoyed most about coaching? What do you love about it?
My wife always criticizes me of always wanting to interact with people. Sometimes just walk by, don't say anything. And and not to criticize her, but she's much more, to herself. And that's one of her strengths. Probably should be one of mine, to keep my mouth shut. But I love interacting with people and making those friendships and those relationships that are long lasting, because you never know who might help you down the road. That, boy, I met him and he remembered me, and I'm the benefactor of that relationship, because maybe he could help me down the road, or I could help them down the road.
It's so fitting that your watch dings during this interview about retirement and looking back, because I just continue to chuckle about the amount of people trying to get a hold of you in a 30-minute window. and I don't think that's going to end. And I think part of what you talked about there is because you have all these relationships. So you may be changing jobs, but I don't think that you're going to just keep doing, probably in a lot of ways, what you've always done.
Because I don't think there's any other way. I don't know any other way. If my wife said, hey, don't talk to people anymore, I think I'd have a tough time handling that. But the idea is that, I enjoy interacting with people and learning from them. I'm a constant sponge. I was asked to speak at a Flow Sports gathering of coaches, and there was a few hundred people there, and I said to the coaches, I hope you understand, yes, I've been honored many, many times and so on, but I stole all your ideas. So when I'm interacting with you, I'm sucking in what I could use. I would tweak it a little bit to make it trademark available and call it my own. And so I want to thank all of you for helping me be a better coach, because I stole from you and you didn't even know it.
That's so good. To win your last meet, the national championship. I mean, what a storybook ending.
Well, to win the SEC meet, to go to the national meet and grab a trophy, we, at about halfway through the meet, thought there was a chance we could get second. Texas was so loaded that a compliment to Edric Florial, he designed the perfect team at the site of Austin, Texas. Because if you're going there with distance runners, the heat and humidity factor, if you're not having a special kid that can handle that, they're going to be disappointing, and they're going to disappoint you. His sprint crew, his jump crew were to perfection, and to be able to do that. So I saw him right after the meet. And, Edric was a Arkansas Razorback, competed in the great days with Coach McDonald and Coach Booth, was a great jumper for us and sprinter. So I went up to him and I said, I told you before you designed the perfect team and they came through for you. And he said, you don't understand. I've always been favorite and get second. I get second and second and second and second. And he goes, at the National Indoor Championships, to win it and beat him head to head, he goes, when we flew home, no one said a word on that plane. It was absolute silent. And he goes, when we finally got together on Monday morning, I told him, you know what happened? The Arkansas team knows how to win, and we don't. But I said, we irritated them so much that they were not going to be denied. And he said, yeah, I thank you for what you did indoors because it guaranteed to win outdoors.
So I screwed up the question. You won your last indoor meet.
Yes, sir.
And you fixed my question and gave me a better answer. I mean, this is what you've been doing for 30-something years at Arkansas. You just take it and make it work.
I think that's if there is a strength, you always try to be optimistic. And when things are starting to go sideways, try to curb them before it becomes a firestorm. As I tell the kids early on when they arrive, I'd much rather put out a campfire and maybe even burn my hands a little bit rather than let it blow up and be a forest fire. And then it's out of my control. And I do like to have things under control.
Well, it's very sweet. I just met with all the girls and just said, selfishly, I want to thank you to let me have another title.
And now that you're retiring, at least we're going to go with that, kind of retiring. How do you hope Razorback fans remember your time here?
I think I am the ultimate fan of Arkansas Razorbacks. I don't care what sport it is. Selling the university has become my strength. I'm just waiting for somebody to come from up above in some of the administrative buildings going, hey, can we hire you just to recruit? Because I can sell this place. And it's been great for me and my family. My daughters all graduated from here. We have a son that's graduated from here. I did pay tuition to University of Georgia, and that was painstaking. But the idea is that, I love Fayetteville, Arkansas, and Northwest Arkansas. I can sell that as well. Because each and every day, when you're trying to build a team, you're having to sell young 17, 18-year-olds and many, many times their family, especially mom and dad. When they're letting a daughter go, that's a very sacred, cherished moment. And Fayetteville, Arkansas is a very special place to live, especially for young women. I turned down many, many places at the phone call prior to coming to Arkansas because I knew it wasn't a place I could sell. And eventually, that was UCLA and USC. I couldn't, with a straight face, sit down with a mom and dad and say, hey, your baby's going to be safe here. We'll take good care of her and, we'll watch out over her. the big city environment intimidated me a little bit about trying to sell that product.
Give me your 60-second recruiting pitch. Not maybe specific to track, but just when you talk about the school and the area.
Yeah.
What is it?
I mean, the University of Arkansas has been here, over 100 years. Many, many great discoveries have been made by our academic faculty. This is a place where you'll be known. People will go out of their way to know who you are. The Southern hospitality, even though we're closer to the Midwest than we are the South, is here, alive and well. People care for you. People will stop in the street if you have something go wrong, because this is a place where people care about other people. And the safety factor is gigantic. You could be walking across campus from the library at midnight, headed to your dorm or to your car or to an apartment, and I don't think there would be a second thought about safety. Now, sometimes when we travel, I will tell kids, hey, we're in a big city now, and the freedom you have in Northwest Arkansas, you don't have here. And so you always need to travel in packs. You need to be careful in the evenings. You don't go out at night by yourself. I've had athletes run here at night. I don't, want that to happen, but I will get a phone call from a concerned citizen going, hey, one of your athletes is out on the running trail, and I just want to make sure she's going to be safe as far as she could trip and fall, or have some type of an issue. But it's never where the idea that somebody's going to pick you off and cause harm.
I think I might just stay another 25 years after that.
I think it's a place to do that. I'm certainly going to. I don't know about 25, but I don't know if I have that genetic imprint.
You're so right, and so well said, and Arkansas has been lucky to have you.
Well, I appreciate that very much, Bo.
How do you hope that your time here is remembered? What if you summed it up? What would be a couple things that you want to leave with people as far as your legacy, what you did here, all of that?
He's a friendly, nice guy that worked his tail off. I think that's in a nutshell.